Welcome, esteemed viewers, to another deep dive into the darkest chapters of human history. A single desperate act outside a fortress can alter the course of human civilization. What if the deadliest pandemic began as a ruthless weapon of ancient, tragic warfare? Today we journey back to the brutal siege of Kaffa in the year 1346. Prepare to witness the moment a rain of fallen victims doomed the medieval world entirely. The sky above the grand city of Kaffa is thick with gray, suffocating clouds of heavy ash. But it is not a storm of rain or flaming arrows that falls upon the panicking city. From the heavens, a terrifying shower of tragic, fallen warriors strikes the cobblestones. According to ancient texts, these bodies carried hideous and severe, grim afflictions. Screams of absolute terror echo through the narrow alleys as the Genoese people flee. Beyond the massive stone walls, the Mongol army operates gigantic wooden siege weapons. The great Khan Jani Beg stands in the distance, watching the tragic ruin with cold, distant eyes. His once mighty, conquering army has been reduced to a desperate, suffering shadow. Launching the tragic fallen men over the walls is a final act of pure desperation. He does not yet realize that he has just unleashed a biologic weapon of mass grief. This single order will soon wipe out nearly 1/3 of the global human population. A dark, devastating shadow falls against the pristine cobblestones of the trading hub. The Genoese defenders stare in absolute horror at the nightmare unfolding before them. There is no defense against an enemy that attacks with the sheer force of a deadly plague. If you were defending those ancient walls, how would you fight against a weaponized disease? To understand this nightmare, we must rewind the clock to the early months of that same year. The mighty Golden Horde arrived at the gates of Kaffa with an overwhelming military force. They sought to crush the Italian merchants and completely control the lucrative Silk Road. Countless nomadic tents stretched across the horizon, surrounding the heavily fortified walls. The brilliant sunlight glinted off the polished iron armor of the fierce Mongol cavalry. Jani Beg commanded his vast troops with the utmost confidence and unquestioned authority. Trebuchets hammered the solid stone defenses daily, yet the city refused to simply fall. The Genoese merchants were extremely wealthy, supplying their city from the open sea routes. For months, the brutal siege dragged on, turning the battlefield into a tragic, muddy stalemate. But while swords clashed outside, a silent, invisible assassin infiltrated the Mongol camp. Deep within the dark, damp grain storage tents, thousands of black rats scuttled in the shadows. These feral rodents had traveled across the vast eastern steppes alongside the Mongol troops. Hidden beneath their dark fur were microscopic oriental rat fleas, carrying a curse. The bacteria known as Yersinia pestis thrived inside the guts of these tiny parasites. As the rats multiplied rapidly, the fleas began to seek out new, warm-blooded human hosts. Unseen and completely unfelt in the dark of night, the silent strikes sealed the army's fate. According to historical records, the disease incubated quietly before striking hard. The proud Mongol warriors, undefeated in open combat, were utterly defenseless. No shield could block the microscopic invaders multiplying within their own vital streams. Slowly but surely, the camp transformed from a fortress of power into a valley of grief. The first signs were simple fevers, followed by unbearable chills that shook their strong bodies. Then came the agonizing, swollen lymph nodes, marking the arrival of the Black Death. Panic began to spread through the tents faster than the raging fires of their siege engines. Men who had conquered nations were now completely paralyzed by a microscopic foe. The once glorious siege lines dissolved into pure chaos as soldiers collapsed in the deep mud. The Genoese guards on the walls watched in complete confusion as the enemy attacks slowed. Little did they know that the very plague destroying their foes would soon claim their lives as well. The air itself seemed to grow heavy with the stench of sickness, despair, and looming shadow. Rats continued to swarm through the camp, spreading the relentless infection to every tent. The mighty Golden Horde was falling, without a single Italian sword touching their flesh.
Look upon your children.
Desperate shamans burned holy sage and chanted ancient prayers to the vast, open blue sky. They waved bone-adorned staffs over the dying, but no spiritual magic could stop this. The heavens remained completely silent, offering absolutely no mercy to the lost men. Many modern scholars believe this event was the primary catalyst for the plague's spread. The siege was no longer a battle for control of trade. It was a desperate fight for survival. Jani Beg watched his empire crumble, his face growing pale and gaunt with every passing day. The once shining armor now hung loosely on his weakened, tired, and deeply stressed frame. He paced furiously inside his grand yurt, gripping his command baton in total frustration. Defeat was completely unacceptable, but victory seemed physically impossible to achieve. The psychological toll of the silent ruin pushed the Mongol leader to the breaking point. By midsummer, the scent of tragic decay overwhelmed the smell of campfires and horses. Soldiers lay groaning on the dirt floors, stripped of their heavy armor in a feverish sweat. Dark, corrupted veins pulsed beneath their pale skin as the agonizing afflictions worsened. They violently coughed through the terrible nights, struggling desperately for every single breath. Piles of the unburied lost grew daily, as there were simply not enough healthy men to dig. The military supply lines collapsed entirely as the plague wiped out the brave cavalrymen. Every new dawn brought only more despair, eroding the last shreds of the army's high morale. Jani Beg realized that his grand campaign to conquer Kaffa was irreparably destroyed. To retreat meant total humiliation, and returning home would only spread the curse further. When faced with absolute ruin, is using a monstrous tactic justified to save your pride? In a moment of pure, blinding rage, the Khan conceived a strategy of unparalleled cruelty. If his men were destined to perish here, the Italian merchants would fall right alongside them. He ordered his surviving engineers to move the highly infectious bodies from the tents. They bound the stiff, fallen warriors with thick, coarse ropes, wrapping them in dirty, heavy shrouds. The massive trebuchets, originally designed to hurl heavy boulders, were quickly reloaded. This dark historical turning point marked the absolute birth of deliberate biologic war. The wooden levers creaked loudly under the heavy weight of the horrific, corrupted payload. With a thunderous crack, the counterweights dropped, sending the doomed flying through the open sky. The bodies soared over the high stone walls of Kaffa, shattering upon the crowded pavements.
It's collapsing! Move!
The defenders below were struck by the highly contagious remnants of their fallen enemies. Panic erupted instantly within the city as the gruesome bombardment continued without end. The Genoese desperately tried to dump the infected remains into the dark waters of the sea. But the damage was already done, and the microscopic killers had breached the city defenses. Fleas abandoned the cooling victims and quickly sought refuge on the terrified townspeople. The deadly miasma of the plague crept through the busy streets, infiltrating every single home. Wealthy merchants and poor beggars alike began to show the terrifying, dark, swollen signs. The impenetrable fortress of Kaffa had fallen, not to swords, but to an invisible wave. As the tragic toll inside the walls skyrocketed, the very fabric of their society broke. Priests who offered the last rites to the dying found themselves severely stricken the next day. Gold and silver coins were left scattered on the muddy streets, entirely useless against this. The surviving Mongol forces, seeing the devastation they caused, finally began to pull back. They retreated into the vast steppes, leaving behind a ruined world of absolute despair. Jani Beg rode away in grim silence, his legacy forever stained by this unforgivable act. Inside Kaffa, the wealthy merchants made a fateful, frantic decision to abandon their post. They packed whatever they could carry and rushed toward the docks in a desperate, panicked frenzy. Pushing violently through the screaming crowds, they fought for a spot on the waiting galleys. Their luxurious velvet clothing was torn and ruined as they scrambled over the sick and weak. Many of these fleeing men were already carrying the dormant bacteria within their blood. The heavy wooden oars of the Italian ships hit the dark water, pulling away from the nightmare. Thick, chilling fog swallowed the escaping vessels as they sailed toward a sleeping Europe. The merchants believed they had successfully escaped the horrifying wrath of the Mongol army. They thanked God for their survival, clutching their stolen gold tightly as the dark ships sailed away. But the true enemy was not left behind on the tragic shores of the distant Crimea. Hidden deep within the dark, damp cargo holds of the fleeing vessels, the plague rats multiplied. The highly infectious fleas crawled silently among the precious bolts of silk and fragrant spices. Soon, the terrified sailors began to experience the same agonizing fevers and chills. One by one, the strong, muscular oarsmen collapsed at their stations, gasping for every breath. Their skin turned a horrifying shade of pale gray, clearly marked by fatal, dark afflictions. The galleys became floating tombs, drifting aimlessly across the cold, unforgiving open sea. By the time these cursed death ships finally reached the bustling trade ports of Sicily and Genoa, most of the desperate crew members had perished, lost beneath the blazing Italian sun. The local harbor masters, completely unaware of the looming danger, allowed them to dock. The moment the heavy wooden ramps hit the stone piers, the infected rats scurried into Europe. This catastrophic event marked the absolute beginning of the devastating Black Death. Within mere weeks, the deadly sickness spread like an unstoppable wildfire across the lands. The horrific bubonic plague recognized no borders, no social classes, and no proud kings. From the crowded, filthy streets of Florence to the wealthy, powerful courts of royal Paris, the invisible Grim Reaper harvested millions of lives with a terrifying efficiency. Thriving, vibrant cities were quickly transformed into silent, horrifying realms of despair. Huge mass graves were dug daily, as there were simply too many fallen victims to bury. The once prosperous medieval economy ground to a halt as the workforce vanished away. Vast fields of golden wheat rotted away, completely untouched by the dying peasant farmers. Desperate families locked themselves inside their homes, praying to a silent, distant, cold heaven. But neither heavy wooden doors nor fervent religious devotion could stop the infected fleas. Entire bloodlines and ancient noble houses were entirely wiped from the pages of history. Medical doctors, wearing their terrifying beak masks, proved completely useless against the plague. Society itself began to fracture as people turned on each other in absolute panic. The incredible devastation fundamentally altered the structure of European life forever. With so few workers left alive, the surviving peasants could finally demand fairer wages. The strict, oppressive system of feudalism began to crack under the immense weight of loss. The absolute authority of the Catholic Church was severely questioned by a traumatized public. Why had an all-powerful God allowed such indiscriminate loss of innocent men and women? A deep, lingering sense of mortality and profound sorrow saturated the art of the era. The macabre dance of death became a prominent theme in the paintings of the shattered society. Looking back, the catastrophic outbreak highlights the fragility of our interconnected world. The Silk Road, designed to share vast wealth, became a superhighway for sudden, devastating ruin. The ruthless siege tactics employed by Jani Beg back in Kaffa echo down through the centuries. His horrific decision to weaponize the fallen set a terrifying military precedent. It demonstrated that warfare could easily transcend the simple clash of cold iron swords and arrows. Nature itself, with all its microscopic horrors, could be manipulated to destroy empires. Yet the catastrophic fallout proved that biological weapons cannot ever be controlled. The plague that decimated the Genoese merchants also ravaged the mighty Mongol territories. The Golden Horde eventually collapsed, weakened heavily by the very disease they had unleashed. A single vengeful act of throwing a diseased victim triggered the loss of millions of souls. History always remembers the brutal conquerors, but nature always writes the final chapter. We are forced to look back at the shadowy ruins of Kaffa with a profound sense of awful dread. The terrifying echoes of those flying victims serve as a grim warning for our modern world today. The Siege of Kaffa proves that in times of pure despair, human cruelty knows no absolute bounds. Was Jani Beg a brilliant tactician, or a monster who doomed us all? Tell us your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed this dark history lesson, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for much more.